For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. Thank you.
2 years after his speech at age 37, Gehrig succumbs to his illness. His time was cut short, but his legacy will live forever.
I'm not a Yankee fan, but Lou Gehrig's my favorite baseball player of all time. And I saw that speech many times growing up. And we used to make fun of the intercom system at Yankee Stadium that day because it had this echo. I don't make fun of it anymore. It's sacred to me now. And I didn't know anybody that had ALS, really, besides him until she acquired it. And this presentation is about her. And I will, hopefully will not be overcome by emotion too much, but there are parts of it that are very difficult. I hope to also make it a little bit humorous and light, because there were some things that we did enjoy along the way. As I mentioned this morning, I had a great life growing up and wearing Star Trek sweaters there. And while I was growing up, this little girl was growing up. I was in Antioch getting higher education. And she was in Goodlettsville. And where she went to church when I was in college, the Shackle Island congregation in Goodlettsville wanted a young guy in college to come and work with their kids. And if you'll really use your imagination, you can almost picture me in college if you'll just use your mind's eye. And a few years later, I fell in love and married her. Back then we wore the Elvis white tuxedos, the white on white on white. And started our family and had a great time doing that. If you don't know Lisa, this is a clip that I sent in to Deal or No Deal. Remember that show back a few years ago? I thought, you know, we could go on that. And I sent in a lot of stuff about my basketball teams, and we thought we could have some fun where the models are all dressed as Elvis, and I come out, David James and I go up as Elvis. And this is a little bit of her personality, because we're sending in this to Howie Mandel, and the show shut down the week we sent it in. So I hated that, because there's a lot of money we lost right there.
Why don't you tell Howie why you think that the dude should be on the show?
Howie, please put this man on the show so I can get some sleep, some rest. He talks about being on Deal or No Deal 24 hours a day. He doesn't sleep. He's always trying to figure out a way to get on the show. He's talking about what he's going to do with every dime. He's giving money to everybody. I don't think we're going to get any.
It's kind of like when Elvis gave away Cadillacs to people.
Please.
Also,
my sanity.
That might get his own. And we enjoyed raising our grandkids and having a lot of fun with them. And looking forward in a few years to retiring. And she was crazy about those kids. They were crazy about her. She has ALS here. It's really started to affect her body. But prior to that, this girl worked out constantly. How many of you ladies, I know it's not a whole lot because it's a small class, how many of you were at her workout classes? Could I see y'all's hands? Look around. There's a few of them. And she looked at y'all as her daughters. And they were down here every week. And it was, she had quite a workout routine for them. And Lisa spent a lot of time at home. She's making out all these plans and diets for them and exercises. And I went, this is a lot of time. Why don't you charge them a little bit. She looked at me. I'm sad to say I was serious. I apologize. I'm not as good a Christian. She looked at me like I was an Alabama fan. She just could not believe I had suggested that. She ran in 4 half marathons here with her niece, Megan, her brother, and when y'all get married? Okay, fiance are right there. And she became our nurse in the latter months. And they had quite a bond. But she was so active, and we went to Radnor Lake a lot. And I tell you, there's some trails up there much steeper than that. And she would be way at the top, and I'm still down at the base of the mountain, and they're a lot taller than that. And I'm down there like this. And she'd be up at the top just going, hurry up, come up. And I just look up at her, I hope I have a heart attack so she'll feel bad. And she just hoofed it up there. The summer of 15, her voice was getting real raspy, but everything we thought was fine physically, but we didn't know what was happening to her voice. I went to a lot of specialists, and they couldn't tell us what was wrong. And so we went down to Alabama for a couple of hikes down there. And then we had another vacation with our grandkids and kids at South Carolina. And so she had a preliminary diagnosis. One doctor who was not an ALS doctor said, Lisa, this has some signs of ALS. And Lisa told me that, and I said, there's no way you have ALS. Your body is fine. Lou Gehrig's problem was his body. His voice was fine. Your voice, it's opposite. So I said, you're fine. She's doing all these workouts. I didn't know that the worst type starts in your throat. I did not know that. And so I had no doubts. We finally got an appointment with the neurologist on September 28th at the Vanderbilt Medical Center. Wonderful people there. And what ALS does, it attacks the cells and the nerves that control the muscles, and those get attacked, and so they end up dying, and then a person dies slowly. Their body paralyzes, and usually they suffocate because the lungs, when they quit working, then it's done. So the doctor was doing all of these exercises where she would push and pull and show resistance, and I mean, she's just pushing and pulling. I'm going, there's no way this girl has ALS. It's impossible. And I just didn't know. And then he did some reflexes with her, and her response and reflex was real happy. It was real excited and agitated. It was real quick. And that was the cue. There's not a test to see if you have ALS. They, by process of elimination, figure out what it was. And he said, it's ALS. He said 95%. Boy, I hung on to that 5% for a long time. I hung on to that 5% till 2 days before she died, hoping and hoping. And so September 28th is a very dark day. About 325 million Americans, this is about how many have it, 15,000. I don't know what those odds are, but they're real low unless you got it. Then they're pretty high. And so I couldn't believe that my best friend that was so active and very competitive, first one into the ocean. She's always coming up with, Cullen knows at get-together, she's doing some type of game for us to try to win something. And she had such incredible strength. And her diet, as those of you that were in her classes with the exercise know how disciplined she was. And I couldn't believe that there's a possibility that they're not going to see her as they grow up. And so when we walked out of his office into the lobby to check out, and we had both fallen apart, this is the first thing she said. Amanda knows this. Those of you that are visitors here, our preacher's family, their little son was born with cystic fibrosis. And the first thing that Lisa said when we got out in the lobby was, Emmett will never know one day of health like I've had for over 50 years. And I wasn't thinking about Emmett, Amanda. I wasn't at all. And that's the first thing that she said when we walked out. And I'm telling you, that's the way she was the whole way. A little bit later, we went with the Webbs, Gary and Dedra, to Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Are they in here? Are y'all in? Is that right? North Carolina. And here we are going through this terrible stuff, and Gary didn't even pay for anything of ours. And that was very disappointing. Not even a meal, ice cream or anything. So this photograph kind of became apropos of our journey. We looked out all those mountains. I don't know what's out in those hills, and we didn't know what was ahead for us. So I was furious with the doctor because he gave us no hope. He did not talk about trials or medications. He immediately started to talk about wheelchairs and voice machines. And I'm just looking at him going, what kind of doctor are you? I now know why he didn't give us any hope. I now get it. This is a death sentence. Nobody comes back from it. You want anything except this. You want to be diagnosed with anything in the world except this. Well, I couldn't sit on that. So I started getting on the internet, and I was scouring the country, the world, and finally I found a place in Bangkok, Thailand, that did stem cells. And this is a world-class facility, a world-class hospital. And what they do, they inject stem cells into the spine from the umbilical cords of new moms. And so they get those cells in there hoping that at worst it will arrest the disease. At best, maybe rejuvenate it. That's the hope of it. And to stimulate all those nerves and muscles and get them going again. And then as I continued to investigate, I found out that it was a $35,000 bill. My daughter-in-law started a GoFundMe. People from this church, the school, this Abby Page here, she did a ice bucket challenge at our school at Nashville Christian. And this congregation, our community, our family, friends that we didn't know, the schools I'd been at, raised it in 10 days. The people in Thailand were stunned when we told them that, the doctors and nurses. And that shows the love that the people here in Nashville had for her and the impact she had. The day before we left, it's a 15-day trip. The day before we left, some of the administrators came over from Nashville Christian to have prayer with Lisa. This was very bittersweet. It was sweet they came over, but bitter for the reason that they came. So the next morning, Brad dropped us off at the airport, and I had decided that I was going to chronicle every step of this trip and be able to show a victory presentation one day. So I chronicled everything. I mean, I overdid the videos and pictures. I did everything. And I even got while we're sitting in the airport waiting for the flight, our first video bit, we decided to keep them light as we sent them back because I knew our family and friends would be worried. We're going to Bangkok, Thailand, and they didn't realize what I knew about this incredible hospital. They probably, pictures of being in a barn with cockfights going on, and I'm gambling to get money, for this, and so we wanted to keep it light. Her voice is very raspy. It's really gone down, but hopefully you can hear her. Our saga begins to Thailand, and I'm sure there'll be a reality show that will begin from this soon. We have just been informed that they are a day ahead of us, so we're going to go through some type of time warp
space-time continuum.
I've been in time warp ever since I've known
We're going
him,
to, excuse me, we are going to, she's also a little emotional because she may be 60 years old when she returns and you won't be able to recognize her.
She was a sport all the way, because those of you that know her, that's not her comfort zone. That's mine, but not hers. So we get to Thailand, and it's got a lot of, you know, some good stuff there, technologies. People were wonderful. This is when we first went into the lobby. And this is our view of the city from the hospital. This is the technicians and nurses that I know most of these people are Buddhist. They did everything they could to save her. The only one that was a believer is the little girl in the middle between Lisa and I. But these people became very good friends of ours, and Lisa had a very strong impact. If it wasn't so far away, I would go back and see them. It's just, it took us 28 hours to get there. It's just too far away. It's like 12,000 miles east of Murfreesboro. It's really a long ways off. So they started treatments for her. Bless her heart, she let me photograph and video everything. And again, that's not in her comfort zone to send back here. This little voice therapist, she was wonderful, as they all were. She just did flying colors through the physical part. In fact, they were stunned. They had never had a patient like her, because all the other patients, the body started going first. So they were just blown away by that. They did acupuncture hoping that that would open up vessels and the skin as they put the stem cells in. And the girl that was doing this said, this may work, this could work. And I just pictured it flowing through there and her voice coming back one day. It didn't. They did special things on her brain to try to stimulate things there. This is Sang. She is our liaison. They picked us up at the airport. We were very nervous arriving at that airport because my Thai is very weak. You know, I don't know a lot of it, that language. And she showed up, and we just were just relieved, because is this a scam? And we didn't know, but it wasn't. And well, here we are in this next clip in a taxi ride. Her and Lisa wanted to go shopping in their flea market in Bangkok, and this was over our trip going over there.
Hey, Sang, do y'all have Shoney's and Cracker Barrel here?
No. You in Thailand? We don't have that.
I knew that.
She was just a wonderful person. Lisa got very close to her, and she was very interested in Lisa's Bible. We would find out later that she did not have an English Bible. And Lisa here, this is not a set-up photo. This was actually going on, and Lisa was showing her how to use the study Bible, and then gave it to her for free, so we didn't make any money off that either. Just, we've lost a lot of money through this, her generosity through this. This is a group of the other people that were there. The couple on the right, some of you know from England, those two guys in the wheelchairs. They had been in a car wreck and a motorcycle wreck, broke their spine. They were paralyzed from the waist down. And there we are. We're actually in a Bible study with them. This trip started feeling like a mission trip. It was really weird. It was a bizarre feeling because of her. One day I couldn't find her on that floor. I was in a panic, and she was in the couple on the right's in their room talking with them, and they connected with her so quickly. These young boys were just incredible, tough kids. These are the kind of kids you'd want on your ball team. And this is, both of them were just incredible. Andrew Bell from England, I actually FaceTimed with him today, or Facebooked with him, and told him I was going to use him in this if I can get a copyright permission from that. And he laughed, and he has a tattoo on his arm there, and his goal is to get out of his wheelchair and hug his mom. That is his physical goal. He hasn't been able to do it yet. Lisa always thinking of other people. The couple, Roger and Sandra, were getting ready to go back early because they got there before us. So we went down to the mall and she got a cake for him. This says "Stay Strong."
How's your movement?
Yeah, that's for,
That just, it's gonna.
y'all mean a lot to us, man.
Put it on your knee.
There's so much.
So they bonded with Lisa very quickly. ALS, like other things, it makes you very emotional and you just cry at the drop of a hat there. This is the nursing staff on the floor. They did not know English, none of them, but they knew love. And we felt that from them, and Lisa did, and I think they fell in love with Lisa. This is the therapy group at the bottom floor, where she went for the physical therapy and the throat therapy every day. The last day, Lisa got an infection. It was of no fault of theirs. And she couldn't go down for her last day of the physical therapy. They all came up to see her the last day to wish her well. And that meant a whole lot, of course, to us. So we got ready and headed back, and we got to the airport, and this group of people, you see some of y'all in there also, and that meant a whole lot. If you were not able to be there that day, I'm accepting gift cards through the rest of the month to make up for that. And of course, Lisa loves seeing the grandkids again. Again, her body is still okay, so life is normal in a sense from activities, but is also a lot of it is taken up with numerous medications we're trying, different types of therapy she's going through, and so we're doing all this stuff. We've got the stem cells in her, and so let me backtrack a little bit. We get back on Sunday night. She's sick as a dog. It got worse in the plane, and then all of a sudden she felt great. And Monday morning before school, we got up real early and went walking, and she felt great. And then that day she had an infection. Another one had to go to the hospital. Vanderbilt, they were afraid that it was meningitis, so they had to inject her with something to protect it from meningitis. And then the doctor tells me it may kill all the stem cells y'all got. And so I was just rocked by that. We went all the way over there for this. And so I begged Lisa to take her back. I said, people will give again, and she would not do it. She later told me that she never had faith it would work. She said, and I didn't know this until later, she said, I did this for you, Mike, because she knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't do everything I could. And so she was not going to go back. So I kept telling her, you're going to see your grandkids graduate, and you're going to make it back. And you're still, I'm still going to die before you. And she said, I hope so too. She's not as great as Christian as everybody thinks, you know. And I said, you're going to be healed. It's going to slow it down at least. And she said, first thing she said was, we're going to honor God through this, whether he heals me or not. Of course, she'd say that, just be quiet. There's not much you can say to that. She still had her great sense of humor. At this point, she's still able to drive. She just can't talk very well. You might be able to hear her a little bit. The kids did not know she had a terminal illness, and so she coughed a lot, and they would imitate her coughing. And Brent, their dad, would get furious with them. And I said, no, Lisa wants them. She likes it when they mock her. And here they are in the car doing that.
Okay, this is the only time it's okay to make fun of ALS. There's the imitator. It's a sad little child back there making fun of Granny. You can tell Granny's real upset.
Lisa loved them doing that. She would just get so tickled at that. And if you couldn't hear, I said, sad child making fun of ALS, and Lisa said, that's okay. Anything they do is okay. Through this journey, we met Tim Shaw, linebacker and special teams player from Penn State that played for our Titans. And he was quite a dude, special teams captain. Played 6 years in the NFL, and then he gets it. He gets cut his 7th year, because his strength is leaving him. He doesn't know why. He said he's working out twice as hard, which is the worst thing he could do. But he didn't know yet. And we went over to his house. That's what it does to your body. It takes no prisoners. I asked Tim, I said, you know, we always get the question, how you doing? How you doing? I said, Tim, what do you say when people say how you're doing? Y'all got ALS. What is supposed to say? And he said, I'm fighting well. I'm fighting well. Tim is still alive, but he has no movement of his body, no voice. And he got it before Lisa did. As it continued, her voice weakened, but her body was still okay. And she would always decorate the banquet for my basketball team at the end of the season. And she didn't know, but I took these pictures just in case this was the last one. And it was. And the team knew that, and this is them thanking her for what she did. And you can tell she's, you know, quite emotional from what the kids are saying there. Things get worse. She can't swallow over time, so we have to put a hole in her stomach and a feeding tube, and that's how she eats. And I had to do the Heimlich on her 3 times at restaurants, and then she just decided, let's go ahead and get the feeding tube here. And then the body starts going out, and she became crippled. We had to get a van with a ramp. Of course, the kids took all of her handicap equipment and turned it into amusement parks and rides, and of course, she loved that. Everything she used. She had one of those sofa chairs that pushes you up out of it. You know, not real fast. It doesn't throw you across the room, but it pushes you up, and they ride that all the way up and down, and she loved seeing them do that all the time. And as we were going through all this, I questioned God a lot. I got mad at God. I did not doubt that He loved Lisa, but I didn't get it. And I shouldn't say I didn't really get mad. I just wondered, it was like, why? Why is this? And she never did. She never questioned. She never blamed. And I would say, Lisa, I wonder why you? And she would go, why not me? And one day I said, I wish the drug dealers and terrorists would get ALS. You blow up a building, boom, you got ALS. Why don't the bad people get it? And she said, we're all bad. Okay, she knew Romans 3. We're all sinners. I told her as we went, there's 3 verses I'm trying to follow. You know, there's verses in the Bible that you can follow and keep, you know, do not murder. Oh, most of y'all have got that one down good. Do not rob banks. Okay. Jeff Tyler hadn't done that since college. So we got that one down. Not robbing banks. What about this one? You got that one down? I did. How you doing on that one? These are verses you need to read when you're feeling pretty good about how wonderful you are before the Lord. Nope. And then what about in James? I count it all joy when I encounter various trials. I said, Lisa, I can't follow these. I'm trying. And by this time, she has a voice app on her phone. There's no sound coming out of her mouth. And she types back to me after I said, I can't follow those 3 verses. She said, I got news for you. There's a whole lot more than 3 you don't follow. And again, not the most encouraging woman at times. Before her legs went out and her arms went out, we went on a cruise with Chip and Judy Osborne, and again, we had to pay all of our trip, and they did not pay any of it. And you know, Lisa, with that smile all the time, you know, on a cruise, they have this incredible feast. All she could eat was the creme brulee. That was it. And it was hard to sit there and eat in front of her. At first, I had determined I can't eat regular meals in front of her, and she insisted that I do. So we would eat together. What amount she could eat. She could not take the Lord's Supper here. I took the Lord's Supper twice. I took it for her so she could be taking it kind of by proxy. And that was my way of letting her know, you're still taking the Lord's Supper. And that was difficult. And I would sit on that back with her. Many of you remember back there, she's in her wheelchair. And I would think everybody in this room can eat the Lord's Supper except her. She's the only one that can't eat the Lord's Supper. But she never looked at it that way, ever. She continued cooking for my team. This is the spring before she died. She has no legs at this time. Her and Judy helped her cook this feast for my team. And I tell you, and you know, those of you in athletics, the players don't like the coach, but they loved her. One of my players came to the gym. We're getting ready to suit up for the game. He said, Coach, my head is just clogged. He had a bad head cold. He said, I can't breathe. I called Lisa up. I said, Lisa, Zach can't breathe. She packs up some essential oils, comes down to the locker room. Zach sniffs those. He does the warm-ups. He comes over to me. He says, Coach, it's 85% clear. The next game, I look up. She's coming to the gym. The whole team is around her sniffing essential oils. It looked like a drug deal. I got your lavender right here. I mean, they all went over there, and they're all sniffing those essential oils before the game. So they loved her. And there she is, cooking bread for people. I'd have to take it over to their house. I didn't get to eat it myself most of the time. You can see here her smile is going out. Her facial muscles are twisting her grin. That's her healthy. Dedra, that's right, sitting right across from y'all. You took that picture. But look at her mouth, how much it changed. But she kept her spirit and faith. Some of you remember she had to keep a handkerchief in her mouth because she could not control the saliva because all the muscles are dead, so saliva would just drip out constantly, and she would still go out in public like that. I don't know, a lot of people go out in public dripping saliva and having to hang that out of your mouth. Y'all have heard about people of faith. I lived with one and saw it every day. Lisa did not see it every day in me. That's why this is Lisa's faith walk, not mine. Then we had a wheelchair race out there in the foyer. And
Go! And they're off.
Go!
Oh man, she's gonna go there. She's turboing.
Get out of the way!
Go, Lisa, go!
Way too much.
And that was her, keeping that sense of humor, still playing with the kids. She pretended she was the Wicked Witch, and that was Dorothy, and I'd play the ding-ding-ding-ding song. Mason wrote this sweet letter to her that she put up. Dear Granny, I hope you feel better soon. Look how he spelled Granny there. He was 7 at this time, and that's her in the wheelchair that he drew of her. And they were so little when she was healthy. This is a mechanism we got to lift her out of the bed. And again, Maddie is using it as an amusement ride at Disney World. And Lisa would love to watch her play on that thing.
You want down? A little.
With them still, even though she was crippled. This was to advertise our vacation Bible school, y'all. This is in June. She's going to die in July. And I put this on the Facebook to advertise our VBS. It was the theme of the pirates that we had. Tammy, remember the pirate theme that y'all came up with? And there's little Emmett with her. I hate it that you little kids are not that you didn't get to know her. All through this, I was wondering why God, why God. I never doubted God. It was just why God. But here's the deal. We're not going to understand God on everything. Don't let what you don't understand about God ruin what you do understand. Okay, we could go through a tragedy and ditch him. Okay, how about that one? It's tough enough going through it with God. Try it without him. This is in the last days. She had to have breathing apparatus. All pictures, she's grinning. There's a lot of times we weren't grinning. Getting her to the bathroom. We had a disc that would turn. I would cup her in the back, the pit of her back, pull her up. She'd be under the disc. I would hold her up, roll her over to the wheelchair out of her seat, take her into the bathroom to use the bathroom, pick her up, turn, have to hold her up with one arm and let her clothing down so she could go to the bathroom. Of course, she wasn't able to take care of herself. And in those horrible moments, we would still laugh. I would sing a stupid song that would not be appropriate at all for right now. There were some good ones. And she would laugh and get tickled. And those were horrible moments, but they're also very sacred at the same time. And again, she's never complaining, never griping, never mad, never upset. And it was that way all the way to the end. Look what Mason said about her. Even though she has ALS, you can't tell it because she was always happy. Just stunning. Lisa believed this very much, that God supplies all of her needs. We learned, don't worry about tomorrow because you got to take care of today. Oh, I meant to tell you also, every night she'd be choking on her saliva. We had a special machine that stick it in the suction, that stick in the back of the throat and pull that out. That was every night, sometimes in the middle of the night. And I'm not saying that for you to feel sorry for us, but just to let you know what ALS victims have to go through. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, that doesn't not mean that you can make the Titans team this year. This verse has been so misunderstood. And it's been used by some of the TV evangelists. You can do what you want to do. Sometimes at graduation ceremonies, the speaker gets up and says, young people, take the world by the tail and make it what you want. No, sometimes the world's going to take you by the tail and throw you off the wall. And you've got to determine, are you going to get back up after you've slid down? You can't do everything you want to do. I can't make the Titans team. I don't think we have anybody in here that can. Hunter, you got anything in you? Richard Spear was a great player in college. Richard? Is Richard here? Okay, he's protecting us somewhere. You can't do everything you want to do. The verse in the Greek means I can endure all things. That's what the Greek means. I can endure all things. This is Megan, her nurse, who was there with me at the end. This was 1 or 2 days before she died. And Megan was there. And the last 2 or 3 days, she was 98% paralyzed. And she couldn't tell us what to do. She couldn't use her phone app. We didn't know whether she wanted us. Oh, by the way, they don't tell you, you lose bladder control also. So she's wearing diapers all through this. And she can't stop. But now she can't tell us. And I know one time I went to change her diaper and she had a little bit of head movement. She went like that because it hurt her so much. She would rather lay in that than me change her. It's rough. They didn't tell us that. So until 2 days before she died, I prayed for God, just bring her back halfway. Just bring her back where she's still in a wheelchair. She still can't touch, just bring her back to that point. And then I just accepted it wasn't going to happen. And so I prayed for God to let her go soon. And I think he did. 2 days later, as we were nearing 3:30, her breathing got labored and suddenly her eyes glazed over. And the last 10 minutes, she breathed quite heavily, and we knew she was going out. And this is when I started crying and telling her how much I loved her, and it's okay to go on, don't stay, don't hang on. And Megan was playing on her phone, It Is Well With My Soul, Tim. She was playing that, and Megan said, keep talking to her. She might can hear you. She said, keep talking to her, keep talking. So I just was crying. I wasn't hollering, but I was talking real loud and saying, you're the best person I've ever known, and just kept imploring her to go on. And then at 4:05, she left. And you know how when you see these programs where a person had an operation and they said their soul left their body, and they looked back on the table and they told everything that happened. They saw people in the waiting room and they identified those people. And I thought, well, she might can see me as she's going up. And so I looked up at the ceiling when she died and I said, hon, if you can see me, bye. I'm going to miss you. And then I called Brother Wendell. And Brother Wendell loved Lisa so much. They were very close. And he came to get her. And Brother Wendell, there's nobody in the world I would want to be there for you to take her out. And I went to the backyard, and I didn't watch them take her out. I didn't want to have that memory in my back porch. And I pictured her running into the Lord's arms like this. The Bible says he's going to wipe away all tears. This is at Pasco Vacation Bible School 5 weeks before she died. She went with me. I was speaking there. We took the kids. She watched them sing the songs. After she passed away, after the funeral on Tuesday, I brought the kids here for the Wednesday night VBS, and Maddie said this: she doesn't have to chair anymore. Mason said, Pop, I bet she's playing football. Now, this is his idea of heaven. He said, I bet nobody can tackle her. His idea of heaven was you're playing football and you score every time. And that's what he pictured his grandmother, who did not like football, doing. This church was a pillar. These are the ladies, along with her sister on the left there, that put her funeral service together. The setup, the memorabilia. And this is only a portion of it. It had it over Creve Hall because we couldn't do it because of the visitation, because of the VBS. But it was longer than this stage. And I don't know where they came into my home and got all this stuff. I don't know where they got the stuff. They probably stole money and jewels and everything, and they got in there and they brought up stuff I hadn't even seen, and just a lot of memorabilia, and that meant a whole lot to me, these women doing that. Sarah Younger, I did not know this. A year before she died, she paid for a photo shoot, and a professional photographer came over and took a bunch of pictures of her out in the backyard. And I did not know about this. And after her death, Sarah came over and she said, I've got some pictures of Lisa to show you. And I said, I can't look at them. And she said, I think you're going to want to. And I said, okay, I don't want to. And of course, it was very difficult, but this is the photo that we used for the funeral. And I'm indebted to Sarah for that. To so many other of you. When the guy was blind, and John, they didn't understand why it happened, and Jesus said it happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. I guess that's what's happened, that the work of God could be displayed, because I still am not there. Lisa was. It's not about her. I think it's about me too much, and she taught me it's not. Lou Gehrig, after over 2,100 games, stepped out of the starting lineup for the first time. His muscles were weak. He's putting his arm around Babe Dahlgren, who is the first baseman who's going to replace him. Babe did not want to go out there and play. I mean, you got to take the place of Lou Gehrig, and look who's comforting who. Lou Gehrig is comforting him. I tell you, Lisa and Lou, they are a pair. This became our anthem through this, In the eye of the storm, Ryan Stevenson, you remain in control. You alone are the anchor. When my sails are torn, your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm. Lisa and I, before she went down, her body's still okay. We were over at one of her sister's houses. We were in separate cars, pulled up at Franklin Road in Harding Place, and I pulled up beside her, and she had the window down and was singing at the top of her voice. And I got this picture as she looked over. She hated this picture, but I know she's not mad at me right now for showing it, and she was singing so loud. And one day, the Tolentino kids were over playing ball with my grandson, and that's Brent. He's out top. His son's cutting to the basket. Gabe or Coco won, guarding him. Lily's closing out there on defense. And when I got the picture back, Maddie was just walking through it, drinking her sweet tea, as though nothing in the world was going on. They kept playing. She could have been mowed over. Nobody even saw her. I didn't notice it when I took the picture. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. Wish we could live like that. As I wind this down, I'm sorry I've gone too late. Fellas, our wives put up with a lot from us. Lisa always supported everything I did, but I didn't want to go to Hobby Lobby and Michael's and shop at Bed Bath & Beyond. You know what we do, fellas? We drop them off at the front door, park in the parking lot, and take a nap. You better quit doing that. All I want to do right now is shop at Bed Bath & Beyond with my wife all day long. You better quit it, fellas. You better take all of your love for God and direct it onto your wife and love your wives as Christ loved the church. So, but God's first. Yeah, I know God's first, but you take that passion that you have for God and direct it on your wife, and God will be very pleased. I do not know Lou's spiritual condition. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find out anything about him, but I hope he's there. And if he is there, I have pictured Lisa going up to him and saying, "My husband really wants to meet you one day." And this is how I remember her. I try not to focus on her in that bed, paralyzed. When we sing the invitation song in a minute, if you don't have the assurance of Lisa, and here's the deal, Lisa would be embarrassed at this lesson, and she would be the first to tell you she isn't going to heaven because of all the stuff she did. And she lived quite a life. She would say, "I'm a sinner and I need the Lord." And that's what you need also. If you have not accepted Christ and been baptized for the remission of your sins, it's not about what she has done. It's about what has been done for her. I do want to play a 2-minute clip. I'm sorry, I think you need to see this. This is a 2-minute clip I did in honor of her in Honduras back in the late 90s. And when that's over, Tim will lead us in the song.
See